It's Monday, May 4th, 2026. I'm Albert Mohler, and this is The Briefing, a daily analysis of news and events from a Christian worldview. Absolutely massive news on the abortion front, several different fronts. Most importantly, we go to New Orleans, Louisiana. We go to the Fifth Circuit. That is the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. And that is one of the U.S. courts of appeal that's just short of the Supreme Court of the United States. A unanimous three-judge panel found that the Biden administration's policy that allowed for the prescription of the abortion pill, mifepristone, and its delivery by mail was not valid, precisely because the government had failed in its duty to make certain it was adequately protecting women's health by allowing this policy. The Washington Post reported the story this way, quote, "A federal appeal court is temporarily reinstating a requirement that abortion pills be picked up in person instead of sent through the mail, a victory for anti-abortion advocates that one of the drug's manufacturers quickly sought to place on pause." Okay, so we're talking about a big clash here, and it might not sound like that big an issue, but I want to lay the landscape for understanding why it is so big. Number one, let's set the landscape. Roe v. Wade was the U.S. decision that forced all 50 states to legalize abortion, or you could even say legalized abortion in all 50 states. That was in 1973. And then you fast forward almost exactly 50 years, and you come to 2022, when the U.S. Supreme Court reversed the Roe v. Wade decision in the decision known as Dobbs, the Dobbs decision. Now, what that decision did was to strike down Roe v. Wade. It then basically returned the abortion question to the states. And that meant that you had red states, pro-life states, and you had blue states that were pro-abortion states. The big question when, say, looking over the last 3 to 4 years is this: why did the net number of abortions not go down? The number of clinic abortions went way down. The number of surgical abortions went way down. But abortion total numbers didn't go way down, and that's because of two reasons. Number one, most importantly, death by pill. The abortion pill, the regimen of two different pills, but mifepristone, the most widely distributed of these pills. And then secondly, the Biden administration, President Joe Biden was in office then, and he basically served the pro-abortion cause by pushing through a change in policy to allow women in all 50 states by, you might call telemedicine, to get a prescription and then to get by mail delivery of the abortion pills, so that even if they were in a deep, deep red pro-life state, they could effectively get the abortion pill and, at least throughout much of the pregnancy, receive a medical abortion by means of that pill. The pill sent by mail and prescribed by telephone. That's at least the way they put it. It's often, something like a Zoom, FaceTime, something like that. In any event, it's not an in-person visit. And this meant, perhaps most importantly, that a woman seeking an abortion by means of the abortion pill did not have to see or be seen by a doctor in a clinical setting. It was instead remote. And this obviously is something that should be seen as endangering women's lives, particularly when the manufacturers of these drugs and others who were involved with it had acknowledged the fact that it can be quite problematic. Now, of course, the promoters of abortion and those who are trying to sell these pills are just way loud out there saying, no, they've been proved to be safe, and so many millions of them have been distributed, et cetera, et cetera. But I want to go to attorneys such as Aaron Hawley, who has been one of I think, the leading attorneys by any estimation on the pro-life cause, and really coming up with an incredibly effective legal strategy years ago to go after mifepristone on the basis of its inadequate health provisions and of the Biden administration policy in particular. And I'll mention that Aaron Hawley has written a very good piece for us at World Opinions this morning on this Fifth Circuit decision. It is absolutely massive. A unanimous three-judge panel went ahead and agreed with the attorneys in this case, the pro-life attorneys, that the U.S. government had basically run roughshod over the risk to women's health in pushing through this agenda in order to serve the pro-abortion interests. And it has served the pro-abortion interest in a big way. As I say, the total number of abortions, even after the Dobbs decision, has not gone down. And that is because the activism of the pro-abortion movement has been, let's just say, rather astounding. As has been the complicity, I would say, of many politicians, not just the Biden administration. The panel, the three-judge panel that unanimously ruled against the Biden administration policy and against this telehealth distribution of the abortion pill, mifepristone, said, and I quote, "The public interest is not served by perpetuating a medical practice whose safety the agency admits was inadequately studied. Instead, the public interest demands the opposite," end quote. So this is just hugely, hugely revealing. And this is really something we need to see, is these worldviews clash here. This clash of worldviews shows that you have one side that is indeed pro-life. That is to say, it is out in a consistent way to oppose every abortion under every circumstance, truth be known. And I'm one of those persons who says it is intellectually dishonest for the pro-life movement ever to act as if anything else is our aim. Okay, there is also a pro-abortion movement. Now, they have tried for years, tried for decades to try to disguise themselves as what they call a pro-choice movement. But the bottom line is it's pro-abortion. And you really see that by the determination with which they go after the argument, and why they are basically, if not profoundly, for abortion in every case, for every woman, every time she might think she needs one, period. In other words, it's so pro-abortion, it's really difficult to exaggerate the case. And here you see the pro-abortion zealots who were pushing the Biden administration, and the Biden administration, quite frankly, starting at the top, was ready to be pushed, to force through a change in the protocols and the policies of the Food and Drug Administration to allow the use of mifepristone in this way. Aaron Hawley, a very influential pro-life attorney who's done very important work in this field and was very involved, has been on this issue for a long time, as she makes very clear, here you had a government that is supposed to be protecting the health of women, instead endangering the health of women by basically the Biden administration's policy. The Fifth Circuit, however, has now put that on hold, and in particular, the availability of the abortion pill by mail in this way and without a clinical visit. And of course, the pro-abortion side is howling and organizing and intending to go all the way to the Supreme Court in order to seek a reversal of the Fifth Circuit. But this is even more complicated than you think. And it really brings in the complication of the current Trump administration. In President Trump's second administration, he's basically wanted to back off all these issues, particularly in light of something like the midterm elections. So whether he likes it or not, President Trump is going to find that his administration is going to have to respond to this one way or the other. And of course, there are some who will be putting pressure on the White House to go along with the pro-abortion movement on this. And quite frankly, politically, that might be the easy way out. It would be absolutely the wrong policy, absolutely the wrong direction, and it would be morally a complete sellout. And that's exactly what the White House must not do. My guess is that the president will not be happy about this development in terms of this timing, but it's going to be very difficult for his administration to side with the abortion providers in this case. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. But it is going to be a very interesting few weeks and months. And at least in part, it's going to have a great deal to do with what happens with what is at least applied for as an immediate relief from the U.S. Supreme Court, coming from the pro-abortion side and from the manufacturers and distributors of mifepristone. Now, at the news source known as The Hill, we are told that Democrats are, quote, pushing back on a recent court ruling that blocked doctors' ability to prescribe the abortion pill mifepristone through telehealth and dispense the drug through the mail, arguing it will significantly restrict reproductive care nationwide. So the clash of worldviews is seen right there, where on the one hand, you have the defense of life and the defense of women's health, while on the other side, you face this adamant defense and projection and expansion of abortion rights, quite frankly, even in the face of inadequate health tests in order to approve this procedure. And also, it's just every abortion is to be celebrated. It is to be repackaged as reproductive care. And the thing that is to be avoided at all costs is a restriction on what they define as reproductive care nationwide. And I just want Christians to understand this is an absolute direct head-on collision between two worldviews. And so sometimes you see a glancing blow. Sometimes you see looming worldview implications. The looming worldview implications are right here on the front page, right here on the front line, right here, undeniable. You are either going to agree entirely with this unanimous decision from the Fifth Circuit panel, or you are going to be entirely against it. It is morally indefensible to be in between the two, to be honest. And it is now increasingly politically untenable to be between the two. And this is another thing in worldview analysis we need to understand, and that is that when you have a definitional issue like this, the definitions just get more and more precise. The difference is more and more clear. The chasm between the two positions deeper and deeper, and more impossible to deny.